Your character's attachment style predicts how they love, fight, and leave. I'm Jack Lawrence, award-winning and best-selling mystery writer and former therapist. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about psychology and systemic theories to bring life and depth to your character. And today we are talking about attachment styles. So attachment styles, I'm sure everybody's pretty aware of, right? It's all the rage on social media, and influencers love talking about attachment styles. So I'm going to give you the rundown as a systemic therapist, former systemic therapist who worked with couples and families, and attachment was kind of my gravy train. That's one of the things that I worked with people a lot on. So your four main styles are secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. And the reason it's important to know your character's attachment style is because it shows conflict pattern, it shows intimacy tolerance, and emotional reactions. All things your characters are going to experience throughout the course of a book. The way you implement this into your writing is, for the most part, in my practice and all the people that I've worked with over the years, I always looked for whether it was a healthy attachment or an unhealthy attachment. I didn't necessarily pay much attention to, anxious or avoidant or disorganized. Was it healthy or was it not? With your writing, that's not necessarily the case. Because of the type of dysfunction or the type of reaction that your character is going to go through, you need to know more. Is it the avoidant, the anxious, or the disorganized? And if it is one or the other, do they have traits of the others? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Some people that I've worked with have, and a lot of them didn't. In therapy, treating attachment is a lot different. So for me, if I knew it was an unhealthy attachment, it was more how to heal attachment than it was necessarily that specific type of dysfunction. So avoidant characters, they're going to pull away when things matter the most. They're going to cower. They're going to try to get out of the situation. Anxious characters are going to chase reassurance. They want to know they're loved. They want to be told they're loved. They want to be told that they matter. They're going to chase that with everything they have. Secure characters are going to approach things more calmly. They're okay with distance. They can survive with it. It doesn't bother them. They aren't clingy. And they're a lot more rare, right? Most people have some level of attachment issues. So when it comes to writing, there's just as many mistakes writing attachment as there are social media gurus teaching attachment. One of the biggest problems is making everybody communicate perfectly, because even people with healthy attachments don't communicate perfectly. So that's the biggest problem. Healthy communication kills tension, first and foremost. Attachment differences create the tension, and that's what you want. That's what you need for your readers to be drawn in, is they want that tension. They don't want perfect communication. And everyone, even those with healthy attachments, can struggle when it comes to communication. But when there's conflict, your character's response is very important. And that's going to be dictated heavily by their attachment style. Just as it is being sure that it's consistent throughout the book, right? You don't want them to start with a healthy attachment and then all of a sudden they're avoidant. You don't want them to start avoidant and then all of a sudden they're anxious, right? They're going to stick with it throughout the entire book. Whatever it is, stick with that beginning to end. They can start to heal from it. But attachment style is created with your parents very early on in life. So much like your responses to trauma, we talked about in the other video, your response to attachment is not going to change over the course of 300 pages unless those 300 pages cover multiple years. right? So whatever they are at the beginning of the book is what they are at the end of the book. Even if they're working on it, even if there's a mild change, stick with whatever they are. Now, while social media influencers will kind of have you believe that people can be anxious avoidant, that's not really a thing. People are generally one or the other. They're either anxious or they're avoidant. They can have traits of the other, but they're not all in on both. Right? So they might be avoidant, but then they still want reassurance, or they might be anxious but still kind of push away, right? But they aren't going to always push away and always want reassurance, and they aren't always going to want reassurance while running away. So whatever they are, there's one dominant one and then maybe hints of another, but not always. Now, disorganized attachment, a little bit heavier on both, but still there's generally one that tends to win out, because the disorganized one is more all over the place, right? One time they might be very clingy and one time they might be avoidant, but they're not going to be both at the same time. It's going to depend on the situation. And again, remember, your character's attachment style was created by their parents, how they were raised as from infant to young childhood. That is where their attachment style was formed. And so whatever their relationship was like with their parents is really dictating their relationships with everybody else. What made mom and dad inconsistent in parenting? Or even distant, right? What made them not super affectionate with their child? How do these patterns show up in your character and in their life as well? What do they avoid? What kinds of things or patterns or relationships or people do they try to avoid? How do they avoid, right? That's important. How and when do they cling if it's an anxious attachment? These generally occur in every relationship that the character has. It's, seeking validation at work, with their friends, with their family, lovers, siblings, everybody. It's not just romantic partners. Same with avoidant, right? They're going to avoid conflict at work. They're going to avoid conflict with the family. They're going to avoid conflict with their lover. So again, whatever you choose, it's the dominant trait throughout the whole book, every relationship they have, every interaction. And that's not to say they're always avoiding or they're always have that anxious, but it's like when things are getting tough, right? If there's tension at work, if there's tension in a relationship, that's when it's going to come up. Now, every relationship generally has a pursuer and a distancer. One person who's pursuing, one person who's distancing. It's balance. Now, ideally, in a healthy relationship, those roles can swap. They can change. It's very fluid. In an anxious attachment, a person will crave intimacy, but yet they fear it. So they'll want to be pursued, but then kind of distance themselves a little bit because they're afraid of what comes with that. Because they struggle to trust, often they self-sabotage their relationships. When things start going good, they push the person away, right? They're trying to avoid being hurt, basically. And anxious attachment, the primary fear is abandonment. They need constant reassurance. They analyze everything. There's extreme jealousy a lot of the time, and they struggle to trust people. Those are the kind of characters who tie their partner up in the basement if there's even a suggestion that their partner might leave. But only if that's part of your plot, right? So, again, whatever your character's primary attachment style is, stick with that beginning to end. Like, share, and subscribe for more psychology tips that bring life to your characters and make your story feel more real.